Thank you, John, and thank you to the Economist for having us here. It's always a pleasure to be in Athens. I'm also glad to see that the European Union is massively supporting the event. It's always a challenge to speak after Simone, who, as we saw, is extremely vibrant. So I'm afraid I'm going to be
I thought he was terribly quiet and restrained, you know.
Yes, for the average, yes. But so I'm afraid I'll have to basically bring in a little bit of the boring bureaucrat here. But I mean, in terms of the situation, I remember last year we had some sort of a rather positive outlook to the fashion industry by saying that there is some progress, there are some initiatives, there are things going on now. Simone showed us that there are different shades of gray here and that it's not that much of a black and white picture. I would like to come to two aspects which I think are encouraging. It's true that the fashion industry, which touches upon most of the SDGs very clearly, is still, I mean, having a strong negative environment impact and a strong social and human impact. I mean, we've mentioned it, the gas emission, the microplastics in the oceans, the water consumption, but also on the social and human impact side, I mean, labor standards, which haven't really improved, or the issue of human rights and the protection of vulnerable groups, just to mention a few. But what I see is that there is, however, a convergence in terms of different actors, whether this is the regulatory actors, which of course there is a demand of producing international norms, whether it's at UN level or at EU level or at national level. But so the regulatory actors coming together with the business actors that see that on the long term they have also an interest in creating a fair environment, which includes being fair to the planet. And I think we heard it on the panel before, the necessity to get closer in harmony with nature. And this is something that's coming up. I mean, all the eyes are on COP15 also in order to see what is going to come up of that. I'm going to take a second. But also from the consumer side. So three sides, also a more informed consumer with grassroots organization also pushing for a constant monitoring of the sector. And so this awareness comes together with, as I said, a whole awareness with the harmony with nature, whether this is with resources or the use of the ecosystem, whether it's the own operations of the fashion industry, but also their suppliers or the consumers. So on the whole length of the chain. What will come out of COP15, we will see that next month, hopefully more than of COP27. And there is a connection to make. I mean, there's been improvement on climate. Now we're getting more and more also the improvement of, as we said before, living with nature and the biodiversity challenges. I would like to point out to the campaign called Make It Mandatory, which is advocating for mandatory requirements for all larger businesses and financial institutions in order to assess and disclose their impacts and dependencies on nature. And this is something new. I mean, there's been progress, as I said, on the climate change, but not yet by companies on that. And if you look at how grassroots organizations are monitoring this, I'd like to mention the World Benchmark Alliance, for instance, that has been doing an incredible work on more than 2,000 of the biggest businesses. They're about actually to release the study of the 400 first businesses that they have monitored in that respect, on the respect for biodiversity, the disclosure and assessment of their impact. And the conclusions will probably not be brilliant, but nevertheless encouraging. They will come up with the fact that companies are aware, but are not necessarily doing what they do for climate change. So this is the next step needed. And maybe the regulatory framework, like the EU one, will help on that, whether this is the strategic package of the European Commission. Now, I mean, we've discussed that before. Legislatures are always slow. It always takes too much time. It's never completely sufficient. But nevertheless, it's out there. I guess in the discussion, we'll get more into detail on those. And those significant normative changes, together with all the other stakeholders, can really make a difference.
Excellent. Thank you very much.